All right, welcome back to another episode of Net Chasers. I'm uberly super excited for this episode. Megan Perry of Athletes Unlimited is here with us. I'm sure it'll come up, but we have a connection back to Cornell. But Megan, thank you for being part of this. I think your lens and your perspective is going to be amazing for this conversation. But why don't you take our watchers, viewers, and listeners, through your career that got you to the chair that you're in right now?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. And you're forever coach to me. So you guys have to know out here, it is Coach Rosario for me. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll go Brian. But thanks for having me on Net Chasers. And yeah, I'm happy to kind of dive into my background for those that may know a little bit about me or know nothing at all. I always share that basketball has really just been this common thread in my journey. So I am, as you mentioned, I'm a student athlete at my core. I grew up playing basketball, little Southern girl from Charlottesville, Virginia, that had the opportunity to go to Cornell University. And I wanted there to pursue the highest academic level of excellence that I could find, which was there, and the highest level of basketball, which was Division I basketball with the Ivy League. And so during our time there, we went from worst to first, coach. We were I think 3-22 the first season and capped off a senior season with a trip to the NCAA tournament, which is a memory that I forever have just kind of notched in my memory bank. But that from there, I learned very early that I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to be in athletics, and that there was something about the team environment and just honestly the rhythm of the game that I connected to. And at the time when I will call it in my prime as a college athlete, the WNBA was just getting going. And there was a lot to learn about it. And the idea of sports marketing was a new thing. So I actually majored in sports marketing and management, and right out of school, got the opportunity to join the NBA. I worked right out of college at the league office as an associate on a rotational program my first year, where I got to work in a couple of different departments, which was honestly the best training that you could get for professional sports, to be able to learn from professionals at the highest level of basketball. I learned everything from sponsorship to ticket sales to what does basketball operations really mean, and PR and all the divisions that really help make professional sports excel. So I spent about 3 years at the league office working for a department called Team Marketing and Business Ops, which really helped me get my foundation for sports business. But then I kind of got this itch where I said, I want to be closer to the game. Like, where is basketball? I wanted to talk to the coaches. I wanted to talk to the players. And I wanted to be a little bit more hands-on. And then I had an opportunity to transfer internally, where I worked as a part of the basketball operations and player relations team, which is a really long term for the WNBA front office, where essentially I was working under our chief of basketball operations. Her name is Renee Brown, who's one of my dearest mentors to this day. But learning about, the operations of the game, working with the coaches, working with the general managers at the professional level, forging relationships with legends of the game now, but the current players at that time, and managing the rookie transition program. So I had my eye on college athletics. I knew the top 100 prospects. My job was to figure out who are the top 100 prospects in college basketball each year, and we would invite the top 12 to 15 to WNBA draft. So very in tune with the game, the growth of the game, and the transition from collegiate to professional through my opportunity there at the WNBA. And then I will make this a little bit shorter of a story, but I've had a lot of twists and turns. I left the league office at the end of 2016 and actually pursued broadcasting. At the time, hard to believe now, sitting in 2025, but back in 2016, there weren't a lot of people talking about college basketball, women's college basketball, professional women's basketball, and the way that they are today. And I felt like I had a lot of insight, behind the scenes knowledge that I wanted to share. So I was very bold and going and putting on a headset and starting to call women's college basketball games on CBS Sports Network. I did a little bit with ESPN, and even got an opportunity to call some Miami Heat games, but just sharing the story of the game that I love and bringing light to the female athletes that are so dynamic, to the listeners that were able to tune in. And then from there, my journey kind of took me another turn. COVID came about and said, no, ma'am, we will not do all this travel. We'll not be doing all this broadcasting. So you can lay that down. And I got the itch. I felt like I had more to still give to the game. And I joined a company called Sports Innovation Lab, which, long story short, they're an incredible organization now. They were a little mom and pop a couple of years ago, but they've grown exponentially and really vested in the research, in the numbers, and the data to help explain what fans of women's sports want and their behavior. This is my little dabble outside of basketball, but in women's sports, I still had a passion for growing it, and work to help release a report that really talked about how do you maximize the behaviors of female sports fans. They're very different from the casual fan. And so then took that information and took those connections, and I came upon a gentleman named John Patrickoff during my time there. John Patrickoff is the CEO of the company I work for now, called Athletes Unlimited. And Athletes Unlimited is an organization that was founded back in 2020. Yes, 2020. Overall, we are an umbrella, the largest professional footprint of professional women's sports in the United States. So I oversee, I'm currently the VP of basketball for Athletes Unlimited, where I can get into details later, but essentially what we do is in the off season of the WNBA, we're strategically positioned to provide opportunities domestically for women to be able to play professional basketball here in the United States and continue to perfect the craft and give opportunities for people that want to really just have an impact in the game that we love. So that is my long, windy road from way back when to today. Still in the game and still enjoying it.
So that is a perfect segue, because I think when you're in something, there's a lot of blind spots, right? You're kind of a gatekeeper of what is good about something.
Yeah.
So from your lens, from your experience, that arc of professionalism that you've been able to touch, what in your perspective, what is the state of college athletics? And I'm going to tack on one other question. What are we still getting wrong about college athletics? So not only what the state of the game or the where we are with college athletics, but like what can we do right? Like what are we still overlooking?
So I don't think this will come as a surprise. When I look at the state of the game, it is evolving rapidly. But right now it's a mess. It is super messy. It is unregulated. And I think there's too many blurred lines and gray areas in college athletics. What I think that and I can go deeper on that, but I think the areas of opportunity in college athletics, it's not just, right now I feel like it's become more of a money grab. And I think there is something incredible about the power and the magic of collegiate athletics to drive community and experiences that drive connection, and within that to develop a whole person. And I think we've lost sight of what the value is of the student athlete's experience. The thing that I do value as a student athlete, that you always want to feel that your hard work is paying off. There has been this influx of cash into the college basketball, specifically landscape, the women's college basketball landscape over the past decade, I think, if we kind of roll it back. And I think that is good. I think that we want more eyeballs. I think we want to continue to drive people to enjoy. But I think because it's so unregulated, what we have done is created an unstable environment, something that does not have the sustainability that I think it once had, because we have allowed this in and out mix, this lack of regulation, and for money to be the driver of it. And what we're losing in that is the value of like what student athletes, what I, as like a young person growing up, got out of the community and the network that I built by being with my institution for 4 years, for learning hard lessons, really having to think about whether or not I want to transfer, what the impact was for my team, myself, my family. Like we're moving so quickly. We are not giving ourselves the opportunity to, I think, evolve in the best way. And what drives the connection to the college basketball landscape, men's or women's, whatever it is that community. And when you start losing the community buy-in, I think what we have to be careful of is that misstep, because now that there's so much hopping around, and there seems to be a little bit, at least at the top, of I will call it a distraction from like the core values of what I think the experience was intended to have anchored in it, I think we risk ultimately losing those funds. It might be bright and shiny right now, and there's a lot of it, but it's unregulated and it's not sustainable. So it's going to go away, and we're going to go back to how do we drive community? What are the core values that help us sustain and build community and connection, and build something from the ground up that is hard to do, with a stick-to-itiveness that you just don't see today. So that's what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, how? Because I love that, because I think you don't hear about quote unquote community in the headlines. You hear about the money, you hear about the gripes and whines and things like that. So what would be a metric where we can measure whether you are high level, whether it's football or basketball, mid-major, maybe you're, the Olympic sports, but like, how do you measure the community aspect?
In this day and age, I call it, I'm getting old now, so it's like TikTok. I'm like the Tiki Talk, or like all the social media platforms, right? I think we have to be real and understand that one way that we are measuring it is honestly by followings. Like that is something that people go straight to. But I don't think it's just your Instagram following, right? Your Facebook following. It is like, who is showing up? Who is talking about your community? And when I think about, I'll give you an example. When I said I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. So I grew up as a UVA fan, UVA football, UVA basketball. And then I moved to Miami, and I got to Miami and I'm like, okay, this is still ACC country. And what is it down here about the Hurricanes? Everyone's a Hurricane fan. And what does it mean to be a Hurricane fan? At the time, the Hurricanes, until I think actually the past 2 years, the Hurricane football, sorry guys, they really had not been winning. They were not on top of their game, but there was still a culture. There was still a community that was showing up. And when you said Hurricane, it meant something to someone. Like there was an identity formed around it. And the following is one metric, right? So how people are showing up. But then I think it's also like something that's intangible. It's the culture of the program. And that's built by the people that are in it. But you lose that, and you lose people's attachment to that, whether they are locally in the community, in the college town, or whether they are, they're Hurricane fans across the country, probably somewhere in Oklahoma, right? Like it's the culture that they're seeking out. But when you don't have the people to connect to because they're constantly in and out, and they don't show that they value the experience in the institution, you're dissolving the product. And that's what I see happening at an accelerated pace across the college landscape, from sport to sport.
Well, and when you start talking about all the realignments or alignments, some of that footprint either enhances and grows because now your schools, playing, schools and universities that are in your market versus maybe leaving, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable about it. I will stay in my professional lane, but I will say like some of the shakeups of the conferences most recently, where it doesn't make as much geographical sense. With that, I'm thinking, it's good. It's good to have exposure. It's fun as a student athlete to fly across the country, to play a new team, to be in a different market. But for that to be the norm, like you're losing the geographical element that drives community, right? That regional element that I think is significant. And I feel like I'm kind of sounding like I'm old school in a lot of ways. Like I got an old soul, and that's okay. But I do think at the root of it, like we will find our way back to, I think, the balance that the college landscape is missing when we reinvest in the community and we core values, we hold those up as the priority. Now that we recognize there is value as well of compensating, yes, there should be some compensation, but not at the expense of the community. I think
that's good. So let's kind of now take it to the culture and leadership. Obviously Athletes Unlimited is it's very player centered, right? What do you think like a player informed or player centered athletic department collegiately, what would that do? Because right now I think like all the policies and governance is just like, out there as opposed to, allowing athletes to be more engaged with the process of policy.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you one thing that attracted me to Athletes Unlimited that they have gotten right and continue to get right, and I try to continue to grow and evolve this. Athletes Unlimited was really founded on the principle that the professional sports business model was wrong. It was upside down. So we turned it the other way, and that the problem is that Athletes Unlimited, they recognize that athletes and their voices were not being included in the conversation in the way, or I guess as often as they needed to be, right? There is in my world, there's basketball and there's business of basketball, but there doesn't have to be a gap in between. And the best business in basketball is when you bring in all the voices, right? Like the athlete is at the core of it. And what we've recognized and what we've built really our business model on is including the player voices. They are savvy business leaders. So across all sports, while I oversee basketball, we operate softball, volleyball, and basketball. And each of our sports has what we call player executive committee, or PEC for short, is what we call it. But it's a group of players, and they rotate from year to year. It's not the same group of players every year, but we meet with them on a weekly basis, and we are building the business together, making business decisions together. Everything from the format of the game to the rules and regulations. They are playing the game, guys. Like they know, they understand, right, what some of the pain points might be. So we're listening, taking that feedback in, down to what the jersey fit should be, and like what do they think about fans, how they should engage, right? Like athletes have all this untapped, right, knowledge and information, and we are doing ourselves as business leaders a disservice not to engage those voices. So that is honestly with Athletes Unlimited, what I love. It is very athlete driven, and we engage those voices. And when I look at the rest of the landscape, sports traditionally is like a very archaic industry overall. Like we are slow. We're slow to turn and move and catch up. And so when you bring something new and innovative, we're all like, what is that? We've been doing it this way for years. We're not really trying to change it. But I think what we're recognizing more and more, and what college athletics, you're seeing this trend of like the investment in the athletes. They're becoming a little bit more empowered with those investments. Their voices are rising, and it's going to come to a head where at some point, I think the collegiate landscape has got to be a little bit more innovative and inclusive of those voices, and find a way to integrate them with a more regular cadence, right? A little bit more transparency, because regardless of what industry you're in, inclusiveness is the name of the game. It drives more money. It drives, for sure, like a better sentiment across the landscape, and you're going to find more success when you combine those things. So I think I'm not advising, but I would say I think one of the important elements is to really look at how can we authentically, right, and with a genuine heart, open the conversation, not to just say, check mark, we heard you, but what do you think? And how can we make this better? Because without that, then you get the opposite, which would be a rift. and nobody wants that. And I think right now we're growing in a split direction across the college sports landscape. And we just need to be able to pull those voices in, because ultimately we all have the same goal. And it's okay to recognize that, and to say that, and to take action, right? It doesn't, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And it's been good, but it could be better.
Yeah. No, that's good. So football's unique because it's one game a week. I think the Ivy League is unique because it's a Friday, Saturday slate. And so you have this rhythm throughout the week that you're kind of talking about. Okay, so if you had a magic wand, how would you re-engineer like game week? Or I mean, you're talking about community, you're talking about, kind of this player rhythm. Like how would you reshape the game week that may now enhance the community engagement, but also allow players to kind of be in control of their rhythm?
Oh, that's so interesting, because in my day to day, I love my players to the PEC. Y'all know I love you, but players change their mind all the time, right? and so, we work together to build out our schedule at Athletes Unlimited. And I think one thing that they constantly, when they provide, when I listen to what's their feedback, they're looking for balance. And so what's the cadence? I think the cadence looks like, as a student athlete, you're there to be a student as well. So like you need to be you don't have to be physically in the classroom. Maybe you're taking class online. It's different from way back when I had to actually go into the auditorium. Right. So like, forgive me for that. But I do think, an ideal schedule probably looks like I'm in class on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday I'm traveling, or perhaps Wednesday evening and Thursday I'm traveling. And I can maximize the weekend and engagement of families, TV windows, all the revenue that's to be generated on those weekends with the Friday, or maybe even late Thursday night, but Friday and Saturday. Maybe early. I'm okay with the early Sunday matchups, perhaps. But then you get off. You should be able to rest Sunday evenings and part of Monday. I think that's an ideal cadence for the athletes. We've got to find a way to balance it. So you're probably you might be playing a back-to-back sometimes, not all the time, but there might be a week, right, once a month where you're playing back-to-back. I think that there's an opportunity though to drive more time on the ground, because what you hear athletes and coaches for absolutely complain about is like, we haven't had time together. We don't get to prepare. Right. So like, let's hold 3 days throughout the week to prepare and and then let's go out and test what we've learned together. Right. Whether it's on the road or if it's a home game, however the schedule lines up. But I feel like it's 3 days at home. Right. And there's probably another 3 days on the road and a day of rest. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm flying the plane while I'm making it. But I feel like that sounds a little bit more ideal, but scheduling is never easy. So I will lay that part down and defer to the experts in scheduling, but it's really about balance.
Well, and I don't know if there is an expert on scheduling, right? Like I think it's just a crapshoot, but I think it's an interesting thing, when you look at high majors who play, like a Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, they're really focused on the next game, and those are business trips. Yes. A league like, the Ivy League, where you got to get unique with the Monday through Thursday because you got the back-to-back coming. Yes. And I think it's again, you said it, it's archaic, and everyone's probably like, oh my God, change, but I think it's something to look for. Now, if you were advising and I'm going to do two lenses, okay, whether it's a coach or an athletic director, about three main culture staples. So if you're like advising just the newly named head coach or AD, what are some culture issues or these big changes that you would implement or advise, for that first 30, 60 days of their tenure?
To the coach and to the AD?
Either one. So if you want to take the big level, take the AD, but if you want the snapshot, take the coach.
I think that's tough. I guess when I think about anytime you're building a program, what's essential to I think the culture that you're building is one, accountability. And you got to really you got to walk it just like you talk it, because athletes, they sniff out, what's disingenuous. They will do it right away in a heartbeat. And so you got to be the example that you're asking them to be as best you can. So I'm looking for a culture that starts with accountability. I'm looking for a culture in which I think that the individual in the program really values open lines of communication. So meaning that it goes both ways. It is not a top-down culture where I direct and you just receive. There's got to be something that comes from bottom up and feeling open to have conversations, because that minimizes conflict over time. It builds a culture of trust. And I think ultimately it helps form a tighter unit. And then I'm thinking sometimes it's hard to measure this, but I want someone, whether it's an athletic director or a coach managing the athletes in the program, with a growth mindset. And so that means that while you might be someone that's had 20 years in the game, and we so respect the history of what you've done in your body of work, you still have to be open to how to do it differently. Because maybe as a coach, the athletes that you had last season, perhaps, right? Like, are not the athletes that you have this year, and they may not find success in that same model. You've got to be open to new, creative, innovative ideas to be able to grow, as well as like an overall, if you're an AD, right, and what your program looks like and where the gaps are and what does it need, open to the change, because what has always been done may not be what's best for right now. And so, like, those are the three things that I'm drawn to most immediately, to ensure that I have a program that is one of integrity, that is one that has room to grow, and is always constantly thinking and pushing in that direction, and that is one that is well representative of like the community that we want to build. They are open communicators and practicing that. So I think those are that's the foundation that I think I would start with.
Yeah, that's good. Now you talked about, with your work with the W and now, Athletes Unlimited, with looking at college prospects.
Yes.
And understanding a little bit of who they are, what they do, all those habits and rituals. Mm-hmm. What translate the best? So when you're looking at that prospect and you're probably analyzing it, I want you to kind of explore this a little bit, but what's going through your framework and strategies of understanding, okay, that is the top prospect versus down the line, like what makes them the 20th prospect? Like what are the skills that translate to pros the best, but also what does not work for GMs anymore?
Oh boy. You know what? I love this question because it is such a puzzle, and this is what probably makes me weird. It's like, I love putting the puzzle together. So it starts with, the first part of it was just watching the game. There's some things like that. I still believe in the eye test, right? There's some things you can't just explain, but you're looking at the athlete, like what can they actually do on the floor at a high level. And so everyone has different skill sets, but I think what sets some apart, if we're looking at college basketball, you can say, well, okay, she had 28, 9, and 7. Wow, what a performance, but it's consistency. So as a pro, what you're looking for is, can you do that on a regular basis? It is not the highlights that you send. Maybe sometimes people say, okay, I want to clip the film and I want to send them the highlights. It tells us a little bit about what you're capable of, but that is not telling the general manager or that team that is looking for a fit for their team what you can do consistently. So I am looking for those high performances on a consistent basis. And it may not be that you have to do everything well, though sometimes I think a flaw in the system is that the people that do everything just at a good level get lost in the sauce. What are you excellent at, and what are you doing consistently on a high basis, night in and night out, right? Like, if you point to some stars of today, like Angel Reese is someone that she rebounds the ball, like she is relentless with that, and it is a very non-traditional, unconventional style in which she does it, but she gets it done. And so you're looking for, okay, not only did she rebound tonight, she did it for the past 12 games, right? At this elite level. So I'm first like consistency across, your performance. Then, and probably I would say along with the same time, you're looking at, I think, coaches and GMs. Everyone has a system, right? So they're looking for like someone that's excellent at something that fits that system. But once you get past those physical things, right? You're the best shooter, you're the best rebounder, you might be the best defender. What kind of teammate are you? Because I will say, in my time at the WNBA, one of the greatest gifts that I got was being able to be exposed to first-class athletes, like your Lisa Leslie's, your Sue Bird's, your Diana Taurasi's, your Maya Moore's, right? Like Hall of Fame athletes. There is a way that these athletes operate as teammates and as humans. So it has everything to do with, if I'm coming and I'm scouting your game, how are you receiving feedback from your coach? What are you doing on the bench? What is your leadership style, right? You may not have to be loud and boisterous, but you might be a quiet leader, right? But I'm looking at how you're engaging with your teammates. And I always think about, for the professional level, a lot of professionals, their next goal is to play in the Olympics, to be quite honest, right? And I know for Team USA, right, some of the some of the things that are non-negotiables is how you show up for your teammates and the way in which you treat the others around you. So that's a second piece that tells me how you're going to act as a professional. Because if you're coming into a training camp and you're coming in to try to make a team, there's a lot of people, right? Like this is the best of the best. And what's going to separate those that make it and those don't is the consistency. And if you're a problem, we don't have time. We don't have time to pay for problems. We don't have time to engage it. So are you a professional, meaning you've developed the habits to be a good teammate, to be coachable, and to be a good contributor, right, to that team dynamic? Or if you're a cancer to that, we're going to leave it probably alone, right? Like I think that's a piece of it. And then the third piece, and it's becoming more and more, I think, a part of the conversation is really like when you think about the dynamic of the community and like what can they contribute to that, right? It's not marketability, but like who are you as a person and what is it that you can add to this community? So it may not be, I'll give a really great example. It may not be the person that is scoring the most. It may not be the most vocal person, but I know that this person might be excellent across many categories. And I don't need them to start the game. I need them to push my starting point guard in practice. And so I'm looking for someone that regardless of what's going on in the game, they're a dog on the court. And I know that whenever I put them in, they are ready, right? And they are the consummate professional, which is all about being ready, being a great teammate, and being just being excellent and dedicated to your craft. So like the combination of those things is what you're looking for as a top prospect to be able to contribute to your team at the professional level. So I don't know if that was super clear, but I think when I look at the landscape, those are the things that rise to the top and we're consistently having an eye for.
But their skills, I'm going to call them skills. They're skills that are the bedrocks of really athletics in general, right? Those three. If you don't have those three things, how do you get what you want as a player, right? And now players are these mini media and business entities moving around. Now GMs are popping up at the college level, and they're dealing with these mini companies, right? Like just the money that's going in. What if you were advising now a GM for the college level? What are some like tricks of the trade or some cheat codes, or what's the blueprint of managing a roster, but also, to your point, getting the right pieces so that your top, I'm assuming 6, 7, 8, are being pushed at a level where they're competing with their counterparts?
Yeah. In today's landscape, it is a hard job. Listen, I don't know if there is a formula, but I can tell you what my approach would be is like, I very much so you've got to establish your core first, right? So who are the core? Who are the core? Probably 4. I don't think it's 4 and 3 as much anymore. Who are your core 4? And then I think you can build, right, that depth chart underneath those core 4 and go from there, because we know that you're not building for 4 years in this current climate. What you're building for is the right now. And so you've got to go out and get the best that you can be for right now. You're on more of a 2, perhaps an extended 3-year plan in this current collegiate like climate. So I'm looking for my core 4, who can be the best teammates to support those core 4, right? Or in basketball, it's 5, but like when I say 4, I mean, I think you have to have strong performers like that are offensive minded, right? You got to have your ball handlers, you got to have your great passers. Who's your best, who's your best person off the dribble, right? Can penetrate. And then like maybe that 5th person is more of like a miscellaneous factor. Maybe they're a great defender. Maybe they just are the hype person and the energy, whatever that is, right? That mix. But then after that, then I'm just trying to build underneath that, because now I'm thinking about injuries. Unfortunately, they do happen. And sometimes teams get hit really hard. It's not fair, but the injury bug hits. And so I'm building underneath for that. And then I'm looking at, okay, I have the skills and I have talent. But once I have it in place, what is it that this team needs? Like, what's the personality of the team? And then I'm looking to supplement this with the personality that will help it find success. And that's a conversation with the coach. But I think that's how you go about at least getting the bones together on paper, right? for what would be a good starting point for a team. But it's a go now, right? Mentality. I think 10 years ago, maybe plus, it was about, okay, well, what's the plan? From year 1 and 2, we'll build, and then 3 and 4 is what we'll have. No, you've got to be able to get it between 1 and 2 right now.
No, that's good. So at the professional level, are they? I mean, obviously the now matters, right? Because that's your fan. You got to sell the tickets. But is the window 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years? I mean, is that relative to the professional side?
I think it's I feel like we're changing right now. Well, I think it has been. But if you look at most recently, even across the WNBA, I mean, there's storylines, right, about coaches that have found a lot of success over 1 or 2 years and no longer have that opportunity to lead that team, right? Or a less than a year, and then. Right, like given the communication that we're going to part ways. So I think the timeline has been accelerated, and I honestly do think, in my opinion, every situation is different, but it's a disservice. It's a disservice to the game, because still, just like college basketball, we want to talk about building community. Fans, and especially fans of women's sports, right? They are avid and they love community. They want to follow storylines. They want to get to know the players. And when we are disrupting that bake and that build, because that's what they're all tuned in for, the story, like what's going to happen. And it takes some time to bake and build it. I think at the minimum, in my opinion, it takes 3 years to build it. You got a baseline, you got to get better, and then boom, this is what we have, right? Like I think that we're losing a little bit of the patience with that, unfortunately. But across the professional landscape right now, I think it is a very short timeline. And I will even say, when we look at programs that have found success, we look at the expansion franchises, right? And with the Valkyries did in their first year, right? It's changed the expectations for what other ownership groups think is possible with a expansion franchise. So in the past, it was, oh, we got 2 or 3 years to get this together, and then we'll start maybe winning some games. Now it's like, no, we're selling out. The expectation is different. We expect to be in the playoffs, and we're competing from the jump. So there's been a transition, like over the past year or so, where I think we're seeing a really, really shortened timeline.
Now you with your work with the Sports Innovation Lab, you started studying kind of like engagement,
Yeah.
So you talked about community, you talked about these storylines and whatnot. Now in the end, and I think this is kind of just where we are with college athletics, revenue matters. Obviously spending matters, right? That's how you can regulate, right? But revenue matters. So what, based on your work and just your experience of the data side, what should college programs do? Like maybe name 1 or 2 things that you have to do to increase engagement with your fans. But here's the kicker. What's the one thing we should eliminate? I mean, you talked about the archaic side of us, but like, what should we just all right, stop doing that?
Oof. Okay. The stop do is the harder one. So I'm going to take that second. I think what you must do, and I think Don Staley has literally given us the blueprint. I think people forget, Don Staley's been in South Carolina for maybe 15 plus. She's coming up on, I think maybe 15 years. She's not there already, right? But when she started there, South Carolina women's basketball was not something people were flocking to, right? And like, how did she get there? And if you talk to her about it, she talks all about how she went out in the community. She forged relationships. It's a little bit old school and old fashioned, but it's like, you've got to get buy-in. That's the first thing you have to do. Like, let your community get to know you, right? And then they will show up for you. It's the same as just like in school, you go to the lunch table. How do you make new friends? Like, you got to open your mouth. You got to talk to people. And once you do, you got to get their buy-in. They get to know you, and then they want to come back, and y'all sit together and you chill, and it grows, right? I think that same analogy applies to the business, especially of women's sports, because what we learned in the research report that we released called the Fan Project, we talked all about the behaviors of fans in women's sports, and they are avid, meaning like They love community. They are super passionate, and they are here for the storytelling. And they will show up and they respond with their pocketbook, with their wallet, when brands show like loyalty to the teams and the personalities that they identify with. Right. And so I think like there's still this common thread when I look at collegiate programs. You've got to show up in the community. You've got to be loyal. You've got to pull them in, and it builds organically from there. And it's not fast. That doesn't mean it happens all in one year, but you've got to engage them really aggressively, and in the way that community wants to. And if that's on, I don't think you can ignore, of course, like the online and the social elements. This doesn't mean like put up tables. No, it doesn't mean that, but it means like pull people in and go to them and show them who you are, and they will connect with that. And then when I think about the second part is like, what should they stop doing? I think I can't say what they should stop doing, but I will say your frustration is like making things inaccessible, right? Thing that fans of women's sports love is the accessibility. There's like this lower barrier to entry. It used to be like, okay, to go to an NBA game or an NFL game, to get up and to see the athlete, it's impossible. Like, no way did you get to see the star player. And women's sports, a lot of times, the female athletes are very accessible. They will come over. They will say hi. They're going to give you the autograph. They will start a conversation, but that drives connection. And I think, I'm not saying to a fault, be accessible. I'm not saying necessarily that, but I'm saying don't make the barriers, right, so high to be able to access something that you want people to enjoy. That goes down to how you find the games. Like my husband and I joke all the time about how hard it used to be to find a women's basketball game. Right? You had to dig. You had to know exactly where to go. Like we were these digitally native communities we talked about in this research report. Like it's almost like you had to be a part of the club to get the link to go to know where to find it. Right. And now there's more people that are accessing your games because it is more accessible. The information is available. So let's not make it so hard to find. Let's put it in front of people so that they can consume it. They're asking for it. They're demanding it. Make it easy.
So what? Okay, so now you're advising the deputy AD or the marketing. So outside of like ticket sales and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What would build a partnership? So you talked about, getting out into the community and bringing them in and accessibility, but what have you found that actually connects with either revenue dollars from a donor or the dollars from a sponsor, like creating a new partnership? Like what's going to do it for that institution and brand with the community?
Looking for that storyline that unites, right? And I've noticed this just over the course of my career. Anytime we're talking about engaging new sponsors or new sponsors come in, and what they get excited about is the sponsor or the person in the community identifies with the storyline. They feel like they're connected to the athlete, to the coach, to the program, right? Like there's nothing like the story of what, in college athletics, it's all about like, I overcame something, right? Like I did something and I was along for the ride and a part of the journey. That's those everyday things that people go through, and sports is magic. You can follow someone's sports journey and you can experience some of the same things or identify with the same things. You feel seen. And so I think it's about getting that buy-in about, okay, what are the correct partners and sponsors that have these storylines, right? That will connect authentically with who we are and where we're going and what we're all about. That's where I think success, not just we're this brand or we stand for these things, give me some money. That's not how you do it. It is, you get to know the personality of that institution, and it aligns with the values of another, maybe it's a local business or maybe it's something that has a larger national footprint, but the storylines is what they want to do. They want to tell the stories because fans want to identify with a story, right? That's what I see from my seat, but it's a lot easier said than done for sure. But that's where I have found the most success.
Well, it's a lot of it is like people either want to do it or they don't, and that's why the Dawn Staleys are able to take a program to that next level.
Yeah.
Okay, so women's basketball has momentum. College men's basketball, their tournament is just expanding with dollars.
Yeah.
Football is expanding with their playoffs. You got professional leagues in
Mhm.
every sport, just kind of popping up, and like who's going to take the lead and whatnot. So let's talk women's sports, and you could even go to women's basketball.
Okay.
Over the next decade, let's just say 10 years, what are two things that we as stewards of the game have to do in order to keep the momentum, keep the growth, but also because of the political climate and some policies to keep, Title IX intact, opportunities intact, but also fresh with the new ideas, new dollars, and just the opportunity that we have right now.
Yeah, we got to fiercely protect it. And I think what you mentioned, just Title IX, right? Like casually, when we talk about policy and the foundation, right? And making sure that there are some non-negotiables and kind of honoring the history of like what got us there. Like I think sometimes we're moving a little bit too fast and we forget about those things that are very much so the catalyst for where we are today. So we've got to continue to keep that top of mind and like raise up the history, talk about it. Let's not forget how we got here and some of the pioneers that helped us get to this space. Like we are standing on their shoulders. Don't mess it up. But I think, projecting even 10 years ahead, I mean, it is so far away, but we can get there really quickly. But there's so much that can happen. Even 5 years ago, would you believe that someone has said women's sports is a $2-3 billion industry, right? It is like the most untapped opportunity that I think exists out there. So it's going to experience exponential growth, but we have to protect, I think, the voices and some of the principles that laid the foundation and not steer from those, right? Because there is a reason that they were set and they helped us find success. So let's not get off of that path. That doesn't mean don't be creative and don't be innovative, but we don't want to disconnect really, I think, from them. So I like, what does that look like in real life? I think that means continuing to be mindful of like investment, right? What does investment look like? And what are the different ways to invest? How are we valuing? I think that's what really changed over the past maybe even 5 years. Like we talk about the valuation of women's sports. We didn't even know how to measure it. Like I think for a while it was like, how many people are watching? How many butts are in the seats? Or all these metrics that are tied to, honestly, traditionally how we've measured men's sports. But like women's sports fans engage like so differently. Like a like on Instagram is engagement. People maybe don't believe it, but it's engagement. Like someone scrolling through and looking at your fit or talking about with their friends, right? Across the chat about what somebody did, the Angel Reese walking in the Victoria's Secret fashion shoot or what Anissa Morrow was doing on the weekend, right? There's engagement happening in ways that is so new and different that we don't even know how to measure it. So I actually think evaluation and getting those things concrete and set so that it matches actually what the sport and the industry are producing is critical to the growth so that we can get the proper investment that matches like our value. And then I just think about the sport itself. I'm gonna go back to the beginning. You protect the integrity of the game. There's something that I see sitting from my seat in the past, like with the league hat, and the conversation around officiating, is just one example. But I think across different levels, from the professional level all the way on down to youth sports, like how are we showing up for the game itself, right? How are we engaging? Like personnel officials, unacceptable, right? Like behavior and how you're treating your teammates on the bench and how you carry yourself and how you are respecting the game that you're playing, making sure that we are keeping that intact, I think is going to be important, not only for continuing to grow the game and attract youth to want to be able to play it, right, for a long time, but also fans and people to want to continue to engage and watch the product, because if it sours, you're going to lose people along the way. So protect the integrity of the game as well. And if we can, if we can figure out valuation and to drive investment and continue to keep the principles intact to protect the integrity of the game by honoring the history of it, I think we'll be set up for success for the next 10 years and beyond. So that's all I have for my advisor hat.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Okay, so talk to your younger self, 22, 23, 24. What keeps your younger self on the track that you now are on? Maybe it's a structural change, maybe it's a policy change, but what allows that young professional woman coming up through the ranks?
You knew the young Megan, so you knew the younger Megan, and so she's drastically different from the person that she is today. But I think that's actually a really great question. It is what keeps me going, what I recognize, is that there's always more to give. There's always more to learn. Like the game is just going to keep growing. So I have been, for a long time, we started a conversation where I said, basketball is this common thread in my journey, and basketball keeps morphing. And I continue to be drawn to it and the opportunities that it provides because it keeps morphing with each stage in my life. And the more, when I look at the more that I give to it, it sounds a little bit crazy to say it this way, but the more I give to it, the more it's given back to me. And the younger self was like such a hurry just to like be on top of the game, get this opportunity, be a part of this, right? Like you are just so in a hurry to actually slow down and trust your skill set. You've been part of the game for a long time, played it for a little bit. You know what you're talking about. You know that. So trust that gut, trust that instinct of what you've built, and be good to it, because you will continue to follow it and it will continue to give back to you as it morphs. Because what the game was when I played it is not what it is today. And there's new opportunity that presents itself and new ways to plug in. And I recognize that now. The younger Megan did not recognize it. It just only saw one path. There's only one thing to be. I want to be a president of a WNBA franchise is what I set out to do when I graduated college. And my eyes were open to all the other ways that I could engage in the game. And so I even think about where I am now, and just the idea, quite honestly, that the game has produced on the professional level just abundance of opportunities that were not there 10 years ago. But even on the collegiate level, the fact that there's a general manager in a collegiate, right, for a collegiate team, that is like wild to me, right? So there's opportunities and things are going to morph as I continue to grow, and I can keep growing with the game, and that's comforting.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, before these last two questions, Meg, I just want to acknowledge you. You brought something up to see the 18 to 22-year-old Megan to now the woman that you're sitting there now. I mean, it is. That's why I coached, right? Is to see the confidence, the intellect, the professionalism, but now all those ideas that can shape college athletics, shape the game. You've lived it, and now you're expressing it. So I just want to acknowledge that. Love what I'm seeing, love what I'm hearing, and I know our listeners will do the same. So, okay, last two questions. What's an unpopular opinion about college athletics or the women's game that you are taking to the bank?
We're gonna get me in trouble with this one. An unpopular opinion. Okay. This is going to be a hot take. Okay. The unpopular opinion is that there's a lot. Gosh, I'm gonna give one. Yeah, I'm gonna just give one. So let's talk about the game. And I think it's probably across sports. I won't just limit it to basketball, and across different levels. The referees are not bad. The officials are not bad. How they're being supported and the resources that they are equipped with to do their job well, from their training to in development to the actual technology and things that are at their disposal at their fingertips, has not met the moment. So I am particularly, I think I have an unpopular opinion when it comes to the officials are so bad and we've got to address them and we've got to get them out. And this is a disaster. They actually, when you look at the stats, they don't get every call right. But the percentage of right versus wrong is still pretty high, in the sense of like they're getting more right than they are wrong. They've been supported with some technology, but I think for all the things that we can figure out in this world to do with AI and all that, there probably could be some more energy applied that way to support them. So my unpopular opinion is that the officials are not bad, but they are not being supported. They're not being trained and developed and quite frankly, protected in order to be able to do their job even better. And that I know there will probably be some comments in the chat about, but when you really look at it and you start to educate yourself on like what their preparation is and the tools that were provided, and it's not just compensation, it's about what their prep is and how leagues are investing in them and the consistency or lack of consistency and sustainability and opportunity to train and develop. Those things are not matching what we're asking for and demanding of from them. So we've got to support them better, to support the game better, so that the viewing experience is better and the engagement overall for fans continues to be at a high level, and the product continues to be the product on the floor, on the field. That is my unpopular opinion. I'm taking it to the bank, and
I love it, because we're going to mark this. So in 5 years, let's see if the technologies and the help is there. Okay, so our signature close is a fill in the blank. The future of college athletics is blank because blank.
The future of college athletics is in our hands, because we have the power to determine how we want to mold and shape it. And I hope that we, as the consumers, as the administrators, as the visionaries, as the former student athletes now in positions to make decisions, are making the decisions with integrity and are making the decisions that shape the game, not for the right now, but for the next generation to come that deserves even better. So I think it's in our hands and we have the opportunity. We just have to make the right decision.
I love that. I love it. Well, that's a great way to end it, is to put the power into our hands and allow us to take it. But I think you said something so unique that we haven't heard yet, is former athletes are now in positions to take the game to the next height. So Megan, thank you so much for being part of this conversation, but also the dialogue for what can come. For all of you who are watching, thank you for subscribing. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a new episode will be dropping every Tuesday. But thanks again, and we will see you on the trail.
Thank you for having me. Go listen and watch Net Chasers. You're doing good work. So thanks so much for having me.